In this video, we're going to go ahead and continue to work on our Corset here. I did want to cover one thing that I did not mention in the previous video. If you're in Quad Draw and you have live surface enabled and I were to click somewhere and I don't want this point, I want to get rid of it, you can hold down Control and Shift and it'll give you a little X when you mouse over it. And then if you click it, left click it with that X there, it'll delete it. So again, to delete something, it's just Control and Shift and you see the X, then you can left click on it and delete it. And I can put it back by mousing over with Shift. So this looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and get this set up to extrude it. So I'm going to leave Quad Draw, and I'm also going to leave Live Surface mode. Then I'm going to right click while mousing over the object, go to Object mode. And one of the things that we might have a problem with now is we can select the body and when we're trying to select our object, and that's no good because we've left Live Surface. So let's go up to our channel box layer editor, and we're going to add this body to a layer and set it as a reference. To do that, we're going to click this button that says create a new layer and assign selected object. That's going to assign the selected object, which is our body. And then we're going to come over here, and the third one over, we're going to set this to a reference, and that's going to make it to where we cannot click it. See, now I cannot click it. But I also want to be able to see a little bit better what's clipping as we're moving forward. So we're also going to go up here and we're going to click this little box that looks like it has lines going around. That's show wireframe on shaded. So now we can really see that body. So now with our object selected, what we're going to do is going to go ahead and extrude this. So we'll go up to Edit Mesh with the object, the Corset selected, and go down to Extrude and go ahead and select Extrude. It's going to give us this Poly Extrude Face 1 options here, and we're going to use this to extrude this. So I'm going to extrude this on the local Z by selecting in here and typing in 0.2. I think will be plenty thick. Now we're going to have to make some adjustments because as you can see we're clipping the body quite a bit and we're about ready to smooth this. So I'm going to click off into nothingness to leave that extrude. Then I'm going to right click. I'm going to go back to object mode. Now with this object selected, we need to move some vertices around because we're going to adjust our border first and then we'll worry about the inside, and we'll have to do some adjustments a few times as we move forward. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to Vertex, mousing over the image to get that menu. You just right click, hold it down and mouse over Vertex and then release, and that'll put us in Vertex Selection mode. Then I'm going to perhaps select some vertices that I think might need to come out a bit more. I'm just going to start pulling stuff out a little bit here and there. So I'm going to select and then hold down Shift and click another one. And now I have two vertices selected. To pull these out, I have to use the Move tool. And to access the Move tool, it's W on your keyboard. Now you can see our access for our Move tool is kind of weird. I'm going to use the tool settings, which is this little hammer here. Looks like it's driving in nails. It's a tab as well. And we're going to change this perhaps to, I think we're going to set this. Yours is probably set to object or set to world. So yours looks like that, which for this one is going to be fine. But as we move forward, that's going to be more difficult. But let's go ahead and line this widget up to that edge so it moves out perfectly straight. So to do that, we'll go ahead and we'll drop down the arrow. See where we have these numbers here? There's a little arrow next to it. Drop that down and say set to edge. Now that's going to allow us to select an edge. We're going to select the edge that's between those 2 points, and it's going to line up our widget perfectly so we can move with that. But we also kind of want to affect some of the surrounding geometry. So before we move it, drop down soft selection, turn on soft selection. I have mine set to about a 6, which should be just right. I'm going to go ahead and also turn on symmetry, so I only have to work with one side and the other side will be affected as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So in symmetry settings, which will be down here at the bottom, I'm going to drop this down and say object X to symmetry. The reason for that is because we're working on the X axis. So you can look down here at your widget and say, which side do you want the symmetry to be? And I can see that it's X, X is left and right. From this view, it would be left and right. So that's what we want to do. So now we're ready to start moving these out. So I'm just going to drag this one out a bit. I can see I'm still clipping quite a bit here, so I'll have to pull this one out. Now we won't be able to get it perfect. We just got to get it somewhat out, just a little bit better. So I'm going to press Q on the keyboard to go into select mode so my widget isn't in the way. I'm going to select one vertex, hold down Shift, and select the other vertex. Now I got to press W on the keyboard to go back into move mode, and we've got to change that access, right? So we'll come back up, we'll move back up in our tool settings. We will drop down that little arrow and say set to edge again, just like we did before. You see now it's lined up perfectly with that edge, so I can move these out. Now again, I'm not going to be able to get it perfect. We'll need more subdivisions, more geometry to get it perfect, but I'm just going to kind of get it a little bit. So go ahead and go around the model doing that same thing over and over again. Set to edge, select it, drag it out a bit more, go back over here, kind of select these ones. Whoops, select nothing. And I'll press Q on the keyboard. Now, see, now I'm just mumbling because it's the same thing over and over again. It gets repetitive. So I'll go ahead and just keep doing this, and I'll probably speed the video up here as I'm moving around. I should also note that you can press F on the keyboard to zoom in on what you select, and then you can use your middle mouse wheel to kind of zoom back out of it, and it'll kind of focus on what you have selected. Now I'm going to go ahead and move up to the top and just do the same thing to the top. Just kind of pull it out just a bit. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we're just pulling this out a bit more. All right, now that I have my borders lined up, I'm going to work with the inside a bit, but I'm going to use Smooth Preview to get a better idea of what this is going to look like after I smooth it. I always like to line up the borders outside of Smooth Preview. That'd be like the top and the bottom. And then when I start to work with the inside and pulling this geometry out so it's not clipping the body, I like to use Smooth Preview. To turn on Smooth Preview, just hit 3 on your keyboard with the object selected, and it gives you a good idea of what's going to happen when we subdivide this model. So I'll right click on the object now with Smooth Preview enabled and go back to Vertex and continue to pull out. But now I need to actually work with both the inside and the outside, so I'm moving them at the same time. So I'll select one of the vertices on the inside that needs to come out because I can see there's a lot of clipping here. I need to select one of them on the inside, then go to the outside and click it, and then now we're good to move it. One of the bonuses, however, is now that we're moving the inner vertices, we're not selecting the ones on the outer edge, we can set our axis orientation, drop this down and set it to component, and now we don't have to line it up with edges. It'll always come out in the correct order, right? So now I'm just going to go ahead and select this one here, go to the inside, select the affiliated one, the inside of it, go ahead and pull that out. And I'm just going to kind of go around. You can see that it's automatically lining up to that vertice. The vertice is a component. That's what it's kind of referred to as. Now, the only thing we're worried about is that the outside is not clipping. We're not worried about the inside clipping because a lot of these faces are going to get deleted whenever we're, getting close to being done. So I'm going to select this one here. I'm just going to continue around. So now that I'm pulling these out, I'm going to kind of fast forward, and you can do the same thing with your model. I should also note that if you think something's clipping but you're not sure, zoom in closer and you'll be able to tell if it's clipping or not. And again, this is just a preview of smooth. All right, don't mess with the borders. Okay, I don't recommend doing that with smooth preview turned on. That's better done after the smooth. We'll pull those out some. So try to get it as close as you can. There may still be some clipping. You don't have to get it perfect. All right, not gonna pull this out too far. I'm just gonna leave this clipping right here and right here, and I'll go ahead and fix that after we smooth. Okay, so this looks pretty good. I've helped conform this just a bit better to the geometry, and now I think I'm ready to smooth. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to right click, go to object mode, select the object, press 1 on the keyboard, and that'll leave smooth preview. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and smooth it. So I'll come up to mesh with the object selected and go down and click smooth. And you're going to get this little pop-up. It's going to say divisions 1. I could actually increase this and get pretty high, but I'm actually going to only subdivide it one time. Usually want to work one at a time. But after I did this, I'm looking here, I can see that the edges are kind of coming up to a point and it's really sharp here. So I think I want to fix that. So I'm going to hit Control. I'm going to click off. I'm going to hit Control Z like 2 times to get rid of that. And we're going to add 2 edge loops going around the top and the bottom borders. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So with the object select, I go up to Mesh Tools, and we're looking for Insert Edge Loop Tool. Go ahead and select the little box next to that. With that selected, we want to make sure its maintain position is relative distance from edge. That'll allow us to select an edge, and with the left mouse button held down, I'm going to set where I want to put an edge loop, which I think I want to put it right about there is pretty good. And I'm going to do the same thing on the inside. And this is going to help with this circle. It's going to make it a little smoother so it doesn't come up to that point you saw. It'll be a little bit more smoother as it goes around. We'll go ahead and do the same with the bottom. Go ahead and add one about right there, I think looks good. And the closer I get to an edge, the sharper this will be, and I kind of want it to go around a little bit round to it. So this looks good right here. I'll go ahead and press W on the keyboard, go to object mode. See how it's kind of highlighted? That's because we still have soft select turned on, and we're going to leave that turned on because we're going to use it here in a second. So with this selected, now we're ready to smooth it. So let's go back up to mesh, select smooth, and that looks a lot better up there at the top. See how it kind of is rounded now? So a good way to round out those edges is with the insert edge loop tool. So let's go ahead and fix the borders again. So I'll right click, I'll go to vertex. I'm going to click off into nothingness. That way I don't have all those edges selected. And do the same thing we pretty much did before. So I'll select here, I'll add F on the keyboard, then I'll select the one behind it, press W, and if I don't feel like I need to set it to an edge, then I won't. I'll just go ahead and just drag it out where it's at. And we were trying to get rid of the clipping because now we have a little bit more geometry to work with. So I've got to go ahead and pull out from the body. So select here, select there, and just pull out. And remember, we still have symmetry enabled, so we only have to work with one side of our model, and it's being done on the other side for us. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward while I fix up this bottom border. I'm just pulling out the geometry from the body just a little bit so there's no clipping. And then I'll go ahead and move up to the top and do the same thing. Okay, and that looks pretty good. I'm going to come in here maybe right into the body. And remember, I'm also selecting the inside and the outside. And the easy way to do that, again, is you select one of the vertices on the outside, press F on your keyboard, that'll zoom in on it, and then you can just hold down your left mouse button and the Alt key and see the inside one. It's really easy to do. And I was just catching that clipping right there. I'm going to look around it, make sure there's no clipping. For the sake of the tutorial and because you're a beginner, I'm going to go ahead and have you subdivide it again. It'll make the rigging a lot easier. So go ahead and do it one more time. So we'll go up to mesh and we will smooth it one more time. And we're going to go ahead and go around, see if we need to fix any clipping. Again, if you need to fix clipping, just go in, you right click, hit vertex and fix any clipping that you see, which I don't see any. I think this is good. So in the next video, we're going to take a look at deleting some faces and we're going to run a little bit of a mesh cleanup. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to post below the video and click subscribe to follow us on YouTube.